Hi friends, my name is Tris, and this is No Boilerplate, focusing on fast, technical videos. No matter what you create on the internet, if I can hear you, you need to sound good. In this video, I'm going to give away all my secrets to making great sounding videos or podcasts on a tight budget. As ever, everything you see in this video, from the script to the images, are part of a markdown document available on GitHub under a public domain license. I've been a music producer since I typed Beep 440 on my first 8-bit machine back in the 90s. This has given me the ability to make good quality sounds using computers, and the high standards that mean I'm never satisfied with what I've done. Why should you care about audio? Humans communicate primarily with speech. It's absolutely foundational to us. Reading is good, as are pretty pictures on the screen. The first is intellectual, the second instinctual, but neither are the foundation of our communication. Speaking to someone, like I am to you now, is the most fundamental, personal, and effective method of communication we have. How do you make this as good as possible? If you're short on time, let me give you the 4-step TLDR. Buy a second-hand SM58, plug that into a USB sound card that shouldn't cost more than $100. The software I recommend is Reaper. Start now and keep practicing till you sound good. The last step is more nuanced than you might think. If you would like to know more, keep watching. My hardware recommendations are perfectly simple. They're not really the limiting factor. I will go into detail after we talk more about point 4. What good is the best microphone in the world if your words are boring? Your words must be as good as you can make them. It starts with what you say. Don't drop the needle onto the record of your mind and call it a day. Speak your script out loud, let it bounce off the walls of your room and into your brain. Never act surprised by what you're saying. Repeat it until it's no longer a surprise to you. Let me tell you how to write good stories. Part 1. A case study. In July of 2020, I was burnt out. I took a week off from my programming job to get my head straight, and by Thursday of that week, I had decompressed enough to start thinking properly. I realized I could make a really great fiction experience using the technology I had developed to make a music video for my cover of Still Alive, the Portal 2 credits song. The look of this 80s scrolling text on a CRT really inspired me. I could make something retro but futuristic. And so I started brainstorming what would become my podcast, Lost Terminal. I had the seed of an idea, a computer that communicated through a text terminal. I'd never seen anything like that, but what of the story and of the world? I had never done something like this before, so I took stock of my experience, both good and bad. The good. I'm a music producer, writing music and probably sound effects would be possible. I love public speaking, as should be obvious to you, so I could voice whatever I write. And the scrolling terminal video method was ready to go. The bad, I had no video production experience, nor much story writing experience, and I'm not a very emotional person. Could I even write impactful stories? So I put these constraints together to build the setting of a single-person narrator who speaks to us through a computer. The character would use text-to-speech so we can't hear his environment, so he would be an AI. That would release me from recording sound effects, as a typical radio show would include. Also, and I must get a little personal here, I realised that my non-neurotypical condition, autism, could be turned into an asset, not a liability. Though I feel very underqualified to talk about emotions and mental health issues, I do feel uniquely qualified to write about a computer who is slowly understanding human emotion. You gotta work with what you know. Part 2. What I've learned along the way. A summary of my advice in the next few sections is to simply write for yourself. Write the stories or videos or podcasts that you or your younger self want or wanted to hear. It's much easier to know what will be well received if you are both audience and author. Genre and setting. First, if you are writing fiction, you must choose a genre which is often closely linked to the setting. This can be anything from sci-fi to satire or horror. This is the canvas you will frame your story on. In many ways, both the genre and setting are unrelated to the story and themes you want to explore. Star Wars could have been rewritten in Renaissance Venice, and it would have just the same message of hope and rebellion. And as a bonus, it would still have cool swords. Choose a genre you are familiar with. Choose one that you like. As well as the setting, also consider the way you present the story in terms of narration. There are many options for you to consider. Present tense or past tense? Will you have a single-person narrator or a full cast of voice actors? How about bespoke background music? What of sound effects? Etc. We must all work to our constraints. If you've got enthusiastic and talented friends, you've got a ready-made cast. Recording will be more complicated, but you will manage. However, if it's just you with a microphone in your bedroom, like I'm doing now, that's also fine. My recommendation is to understand your constraints and let them shape the setting. Some of the best and most influential stories are told by a single person whispering into a microphone, and you can always add more people later. The most important thing is to start. Themes and topics. This is what your story or video or podcast is really about. Not the location, not the framing, not even the story and characters. The big themes your characters explore within the framing of the world are what you will be writing about mostly. Environmentalism, class struggle, slavery, mental health, the meaning of art, the meaning of life. The topics are the reason you want to write. The topics are the reason you need to write. The topic and theme should get you out of bed in the morning. They should make you proud of what you write, make you hunger to learn more about it so you can better distill that information down into your work. And here's the most important thing, to leave people richer and better for experiencing your story. It's okay to start with a simple story or a character concept that you think is fun, but that won't keep you going. As you're writing your first draft or pilot episode, look for the themes and topics that are creeping into your work. Your brain won't let you write about anything else. Seize them. You may know how to write a story. You may not. When I started writing Lost Terminal, I certainly didn't. But I have good news for you. If you believe Kurt Vonnegut, there are only 6 stories in the world. They are Rags to Riches, a story that follows a rise in happiness; Tragedy, or Riches to Rags, one that follows a fall in happiness; Man in a Hole, Fall, Rise; Icarus, Rise, Fall; Cinderella, Rise, Fall, Rise; and Oedipus, Fall, Rise, Fall. Write one of these if you're having trouble coming up with your own. It doesn't matter. As I said before, the real impact isn't the plot arc, it's the themes of your story. Sure, it's fun to have a cute satellite protagonist, but the deep themes will be what people come back for again and again. How to write, according to Neil Gaiman, is that you sit down at the keyboard and you put one word after another until it's done. It's that easy and that hard. Writing to the regular schedule required by a serialized video or podcast format can take 2 forms. 1. Write it all beforehand and record to your schedule. 2. Write it just in time for your recording schedule. Though the former is more relaxing and safer, I'm going to argue you do the latter, at least at first. Like many of us, I struggle with getting things done. When there are no deadlines other than those I create, it seems I can finish my projects whenever, which of course actually means never. There are tools and projects that helped me in the past. The only novel I've ever finished was because I committed very loudly and publicly to NaNoWriMo, National November Writing Month, and smashed 1,600 words into my laptop every day for a month. Though I'm very proud of what I wrote, I don't think the pace is sustainable for a video or podcast, and I certainly didn't have any fun. I recommend a much more sedentary 500 words per day. This allows you, if you like, to have a 20-minute episode completed in 1 week. Here is my schedule for your interest. I get up early and do this before my day job. It only takes an hour and means that I give my best, most focused time to my project. Some of you will be night owls and can do this at night. Others have busy lives and can only spare a lunch break. Choose a schedule that works for you. You can bunch up these and record a whole session of them, or, as I've said, you could release them straight away. Why would we subject ourselves to this hectic schedule? Motivation and feedback. Motivation, for me, relates to the thrill of finishing something. But what if I've not finished editing, I hear you cry? I have good news. The work is never finished. As Bill Condon says, simply, no piece of writing is ever finished. It's just due. So you get it as good as you can do, and then you record. The act of recording, of speaking the script out loud, is a huge advantage that book authors do not always have. It's a great check, in my experience, and errors are corrected either consciously or unconsciously while speaking. Feedback is very useful, especially when you're starting out. If you keep your script to yourself, you'll never improve. If you get an editor, you'll have 2 heads to improve it, but releasing it to the world for comment will get you 1,000 times that. You also might find aspects of the story that people pick up on that you didn't even notice. Maybe they love the background character you put in for just 1 paragraph. Time to give that person their own arc. And of course, positive feedback and praise is very motivating. If you, as I recommend, record and publish early episodes before later episodes have been written, you may worry about how to guarantee continuity. While I made some small mistakes in my pilot episode, both factual and plot related, nobody cares. Not one person has pointed out the errors. They have, I imagine, forgotten them, under the weight of subsequent episodes. This happens all the time to professionals in every industry, from TV shows to movie series. Allow yourself leniency in your first episode for small errors. You have to, otherwise you'll never get the damn thing started. But for the rest of your story, you must plan. A good friend of mine, Neil Merton, collaborator on our podcast Modem Prometheus, gave me some advice when I was starting out. Knowing the destination is a big help when planning the trip. Simply, this means you must plan. Once you've chosen your plot arc, or chosen one of the 6 plots Kurt Vonnegut has identified, write it down in a table and sketch out for yourself what happens for each of the plot lines in your series. There can be overlapping plots for each important character. My advice for this is to start at the end, the resolution, then go back to the start, then the midpoint, then fill in the details. Dan Wells has a great video on his take on story structure you should watch. So how do you record all of this? If you have no budget, you can use the device you currently have in your pocket at all times. Microphones are very clever. Your phone has a great one built into it. You don't need room treatment to reduce echoes if you hold the mic close to your mouth. You can even use a cheap microphone if you hold it right next to your mouth. Your phone mic works best if you hold it in the way it was designed to work. Listen to this. Governments of the industrial world, you weary giants of flesh and steel. I come from cyberspace, the new home of mind. Governments of the industrial world, you weary giants of flesh and steel. I come from cyberspace, the new home of mind. Governments of the industrial world, you weary giants of flesh and steel. I come from cyberspace, the new home of mind. If you don't believe me, watch this video by Andrew Huang, where he used his MacBook microphone to record a whole album. Hold your phone like this, and you'll sound great in your recordings. To get started, use your phone for video and record your voiceover audio up close with your phone too. But maybe you've got a small budget. What should you buy if so? I have only one recommendation here if you're starting out. Buy a second-hand Shure SM58. The more beaten up it looks, the better. You'll pay less money for it and it'll probably sound just fine. Get it from your local music store or eBay. Don't pay more than $50 or $60. You should never be afraid of spending money on the SM58. It will last your entire life, and if you have any construction work you need to do around the house, you can use it to hammer in nails. You can also use the SM57 if it's easier for you to get hold of. It's basically the same microphone, but this one is less good for heavy construction projects because it has less shielding. Every single US president since Lyndon B. Johnson has delivered speeches through an SM57. That's since 1963. Don't buy a Blue Yeti microphone. Don't buy any USB microphone. The slight increase in complexity is worth it. Trust me. Your SM58 has an XLR connector on it, and the signal is so low that it requires amplification up to the line level your PC can use. Both of these are the job of an external USB audio interface. They come in all shapes and sizes. Buy the cheapest secondhand one you can find that has good reviews from Scarlett, Tascam, Behringer, and so on. If you don't want to search around, I use and recommend the red interface at the top right here, the Scarlett 2i2. It's plug and play, even on Linux. I'm using it right now. Let's talk software. You will read in many recommendations for getting started with audio editing to use Audacity. I love Audacity. You should absolutely have it installed for quick edits. It's open source, works everywhere, including compiled into WebAssembly at webacity.com. However, it's just slightly too bare bones for anything more than trivial work. Feel free to start here, I certainly did, but the choice isn't this or spending money on big audio software. You should use Reaper. Reaper has all the built-in plugins you could need, is lightning fast, and can even edit video, and has an unlimited free trial version. I'm editing this audio and video right now in Reaper. In addition to being the best audio editor I've used, it's also the best video editor I've used. Reaper is not open source, but before that puts you off, let me redeem it with 2 facts. 1. Linux is natively supported alongside the usual suspects of Windows and OS X, but it feels like the Reaper developers really care about Linux support. It works on Raspberry Pi and even the new M1 Mac hardware running on Asahi Linux. The second reason is sentimental. It's built by Justin Frankel, who made, amongst other things, Winamp. And if you were listening to Napster music in the 90s, as I was, this might hit rather hard. Winamp was basically free. I don't know anyone who paid for it. Redeem your karma by paying Justin $60 for Reaper after you've tried it out. I recommend Reaper, but whatever you use, you will need 3 basic plugins. There are a million plugins available. People will love to sell you some, but you need only 3, and they will be built into your audio editor. A gate set to just above your room noise floor, mine is at about minus 54 decibels. An equalizer set to your vocal range, I used the male preset and tweaked from there. And then a compressor to even out the volume of your recording, with makeup options to boost quiet sections and limits so you don't get too hot. That's it. Those are my secrets. If you'd like to chat about audio or video more, my Discord has an audio production channel. Come chat to me there. Thank you for your time. If you would like to support my channel, get early ad-free and tracking-free videos and VIP Discord access, head to patreon.com/noboilerplate. If you're interested in transhumanism and hope punk stories, please check out my sci-fi podcast, Lost Terminal. Or if urban fantasy is more your bag, click the bottom video to listen to a strange and beautiful podcast I produce called Modem Prometheus. Transcripts and compiled checked markdown source code are available on GitHub, links in the description, and corrections are in the pinned ERRATA comment. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you on Discord.